Hello, this is Janet from janetsandberg.com, and you're listening to the Phoenix Wisdom Podcast, the weekly show that talks to peers and professionals who open up about their darkest moments when they felt like ending it all, why they didn't, and how they transformed their lives in order to triumph over the darkness and despair. Please remember to subscribe if you'd like to hear more inspiring stories. Welcome to the Phoenix Wisdom Podcast. We are here today with the beautiful Carlee Myers, who is open and an expert in communication and is willing to share her story with us today. So, Carlee, why don't you do a better introduction than I just did about yourself?
Yes, I love hearing though, like what you received from my energy. I'm like, oh yeah, receiving communication. Um, but yeah, so I'm the founder and leader here at the Stress Less Company, and what I do is I help people who've experienced a devastating relational loss um, to manage their stress in a way that creates satisfying results. Just one of which is more fulfilling relationships. And a key tool that I teach is something called safe conversations. And that helps us to create more intimacy and connection in all of our relationships. So, yeah, communication is a big part of what I do.
Beautiful. Yes. All right. Well, let's just jump right into it. What we do here, of course, is share stories of transformation and triumph from surviving to thriving. So, can you tell me, when did you hit bottom and why were you considering not being here anymore?
Mm. Yeah, it's funny. So when you first asked when did you hit bottom, my brain was like, which one? Which spot? But then you clarified, right? Where I was considering not being here. And for me, that really boiled down to a specific time in my life when I was actually in relationship and I with a particular person at this time in my life, and I felt even though I was in partnership, more lonely than I ever felt in my life, more misunderstood, um, that I was alone,
Mhm.
um, and that like not only was I carrying my own stuff, but I felt like I was carrying the weight of the world, um, and especially in this partnership, the weight of their issues as well. And so, um, I guess to share my experience of that particular evening and sort of where my headspace was at, you know, I had gotten into sort of an argument with this person. I had brought forward, hey, this is how I'm feeling. This is what's going on for me. I am so darn depressed. I am concerned.
Mhm.
I am like, and I'm not the type of person that typically is one to come out and be like, you know what, guys, I'm depressed and I'm concerned about my own well-being. And
It's
so
got to
that
be
was
bad for us to come out
yes,
and say that. Yeah.
yes, to say it and say it so bluntly,
Mhm.
right? And so here I am saying, I'm in a really dark place. And and it wasn't at that point where I was saying I don't want to be here, but it was just saying I'm really struggling here. And so I go to this person and I'm telling them this, and the look that they gave me was sort of what sent me over the edge. The look of annoyance, of of um I could see in their eyes that this was a burden to them, that this was annoying, that they didn't want to have to deal with this, that they had their own problems. And those were all true for them, I'm sure. Um, but it was in that moment that for me, what turned from deep, dark depression
Mhm.
turned into rage and anger. And I think this is a perspective of like not wanting to be here anymore that I don't know that a lot of people talk about. Whereas in that moment, I thought, I'll show them.
Mm.
because I'm in so much pain and I'm hurting so much, and I'm trying to express that with them and trying to connect with them over this. I'll show them how I really feel, basically, right? So, I end up storming upstairs to where I knew I could quote unquote get the job done, and fully expecting, right? So there's a little bit of this manipulation that I was bringing to the table, fully expecting that this person would chase after me, and they didn't. And so I come to this moment looking at this, uh, we'll call it what it is, a gun. And I'm looking at this gun and I'm thinking to myself, I'll show them. I'll show them. It wasn't about necessarily, it was about me, but it was also about them
Mm-hmm.
and this rage. And luckily I had this moment in that moment, this sort of download, this like clear voice that was like, not today. This is not it. And I sort of had one of those moments where I, I I don't know if this is where mantras came from a fairly desperate place, but for me, a mantra came up, and I just started saying to myself over and over again, not today, not today. This is not how it's going to go down, not today. And I just said that over and over and over again as I walked away, went downstairs, put my shoes on, got my keys, went to the car, and I drove and I drove and I found a parking lot and I called for help.
Mm. Good
And
for you.
so that was, my experience. And I don't know that, and maybe I really am excited to see what your podcast and your show really reveals in these stories, Janet, because for me, I haven't heard many stories that express the flip side of this. It's not just I don't want to be here, but it's the I'll show them side of it. Because that for me was very true. Because I'm in a lot of pain and I want someone to see me and no one is seeing me. That's how I felt.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And yeah, that is really powerful. And yeah, I mean it makes sense because you were in that type of relationship, right? Where you
Mm-hmm.
just and I was in a similar relationship where I'm just like, hello,
Mm-hmm.
I
I'm
exist.
over here
I'm
waving
over
all the
here.
flags. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not just your personal assistant, or your secretary. Like, we were married, you know, but yeah, sometimes you just want to do something desperate to
Mm-hmm.
to be noticed and for them to feel something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right on point. Um, and so this is where like a lot of the work that I do around relationships is fueled too, because, you know, I think there's a statistic that's like 74% of people say that their relationships help them cope with stress.
Hmm.
But what about the other, what's math? 26%?
Hmm.
And that 26%, there's a lot of painful things that are happening there. But if we can switch from feeling like ships passing in the night, um, or worse, like ships fight, like ships that are at war passing in the night, right? Um, then there's just so much opportunity for healing for everyone involved on every level.
Right. And I love that not today mantra because that's really what it boils down to is just moment by moment, day by day. At
Mm-hmm.
that point we can't be planning for the future and thinking
No.
big and it's just not right now, not today. If I'll
Mm-hmm.
make it through today and tomorrow's another day. And I love
Yes.
that. I love
Yeah.
that.
And
So
it's so funny. It's so funny that you say that too, because I have Melody Beattie's 52 weeks of conscious contact. Yeah, that's what it's called. And this week, the theme is, as I was reading like the daily messages, this week's theme is one day at a time.
mhm.
So
Yeah. Well,
all in. well
Um,
aligned.
so I'm a Reiki master teacher, and when you first learn Reiki, you learn the 5 Reiki principles, and each of them, which is just sort of a basic guideline as to how to practice Reiki and how to live your life, in a good way. But each of them starts off with just for today. Like that's all we're concerned about. If I can do these things just for today, it's a success.
Yeah.
And that's all we focus on is just for today, just for today.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's the key to getting through this. So you said, so you called for help, and then obviously you got help, I'm guessing.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
then yeah. So I have so many questions. um so you said you got that message, not today, really,
hmm
really clear, and that's what changed your mind. And then
Yeah.
you got help. And
Yeah.
and what did it how long ago was this? Like how long did it take for you to come out of that?
Oh, years ago, years and years ago. It took me, um, it took me a while, sort of traumatized myself with the experience.
Hmm.
Because I actually understood what I was capable of then.
Yeah.
And that was quite a terrifying prospect. Um, and so it took me a while to process that. And I had been seeing a therapist at the time, and in all realness, that therapist was rather unhelpful. I sort of went to her during our next session, and yeah, put it very gently, rather unhelpful. Um, I go to that next session, and I'm like, here's what happened. And I think I think looking back on it, I think she was triggered. I think she was scared for me. And
Mm.
her response was sort of to get really worked up on my behalf. Carlee, this is unacceptable. Like this kind of behavior. And she's kind of getting upset about the person I was with reaction to what I had brought forward to. And right, like we need to do something about this. And it became really like this urgent matter. And yes, was really urgent. Um, um, but for me, so that sort of began like, okay, this relationship with this therapist I'd been in kind of communication with wasn't working for me.
Mhm.
I needed somebody who, and this was across the board. I needed to surround myself with people who were gentle, who were open, who were nurturing, because that's what I needed.
Mhm.
Um, and this kind of, I could take this to like a spiritual level too. Most of my life I was sort of raised to have this belief in sort of this like warrior god, this kind of vengeful god, this punishing, but also there's some good things that he does kind of god. And
Right.
I it was sort of at this time where I was starting to realize that nurturing, that I wanted a higher power that was nurturing, that was that loved me unconditionally,
Mhm.
and I wanted to surround myself with professional help and people that were nurturing, that wanted the best for me, that um, understood that there was a level of unconditional love, but really what that means is a level of detachment from, I don't know how else to explain it, but a level of detachment. And so, yeah. Oh, I'm realizing I'm answering a question. So, um, yeah, it took me a while. I had to find the right support system.
Yeah.
I redefined what spirituality looked like to me. Because up until that point, I sort of had shunned spirituality because I didn't want to have a vengeful higher power.
Mhm.
And so it took a while. And I think it was kind of exactly what we were talking about. It was one moment at a time, one day at a time. Like I'm feeling this way in the moment. What can I do to nurture myself? Who can I call? How can I create the relationships that I want? And it was like these tiny little shifts that I made that over time ended up leading me to uh, some bigger decisions that I needed to make.
Right.
like ending that relationship and um, creating a deeper sense of safety and calm and nurturing environment for myself. And that's sort of when things, it just slowly changed. It wasn't like a, moment. It wasn't like, boom, I get it, I'm better. But it was
Yeah.
all these small little things.
Yeah. Yeah. And then one day you look back and you're like, whoa,
Whoa. Yeah, exactly.
my
Yeah.
life is totally different. Look what I
Yeah.
did. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And part of it, I look back and I think, whoa, look what I did, but also look what happened, like the things that happened that I couldn't do for myself. Like somehow they worked out and I would have never been able to like for instance, leaving that relationship, there were so many times where I was like, I can't do it. I'm trapped. There's no way I'll survive on my own. Like there was a lot of stories that I told myself
Yeah.
that kept me there. And, it was one day I got this download that was like, it's not safe for you here. It's not a healthy place for you to be here. And for whatever reason, that particular day, it just hit me.
Yeah.
And then I don't remember much, but then I was gone. Right. So it was like, I don't feel like I was driving my physical body at that moment, that something else was driving me and I was on my way. So I kind of look back and think, whoa, go girl. But also, whatever the forces that be, thank you for doing what I really felt like I could.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. I just got goosebumps like all over. And
Yeah.
yeah, just being open to doing what is best wherever that
Mhm.
idea comes from or is delivered from, and sometimes you just know,
Mhm.
and there's no thinking to it. You're just like, this is the
Yeah.
next thing that I have to do for myself, and you just do it.
Yes.
um
Yeah. One of the most helpful pieces of advice that I got during that time was from one of my mentors. Um, and I remember being on a phone call, walking like 10 o'clock at night around the streets of Philadelphia because I was really upset that night. And I was thinking about leaving this relationship that I'm talking about. And he said to me, and I had this push and pull. Oh, I can't do it, but oh, I should do it. And oh, everyone's going to judge me. And oh, this, and like all these
mhm.
internal turmoil. And I remember him saying to me, I'm going to butcher it, that he's like, Carlee, you don't have to make a decision. You don't have to make a decision. You can wait until more information is revealed to you, and the decision then makes itself. And I was not very willing to accept that advice at the moment. but, but then here, that's exactly what happened. The information revealed itself, and then it was boom. There was no decision. There was no inner turmoil. There was just, I know what I need to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. That I love that. Yeah. That, if you and sometimes we feel like we have to decide right now, but sometimes waiting is really what's best,
yeah.
until
Mm-hmm.
you know, with your body, your mind, your soul, you just know that this is the next right thing, the next best step.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So give us a glimpse into life now. Like what amazing things are happening in your life? Why are you glad that you stayed? Um,
I love this question. um, gosh. All right. So part of that time, I'll give you a little bit of contrast here. So part of that time in my life, I let my business dwindle. So I had always sort of had a business, or I started my business before that time in my life. I let my business dwindle into almost nothing. And that was really awful for me. But now my business is back, baby. I'm still here. I'm still serving. So that's really like a moment of pride for me because I thought I'd lost it. And I spent some time reviving him. She's here and she's thriving. So there's that big component, because it's my life's purpose. Um, but also like now, um, there's just this, oh, I might cry. There's just this sense of deep freedom and like play, like more play than I ever thought was possible. I was so serious before, and so like Now you might hear me, like my favorite thing right now in terms of play is salsa dancing.
I love it.
And like you'll hear me talk about salsa dancing like all the time. There's like all these little moments of play where I'm able to be silly, and and I feel free. Like, the story that I used to tell myself is that I was trapped.
Mhm.
And now like I have this sense that like the voice still comes up. Like I just want to be transparent. The voice, the ego mind still says like, Carlee, you're trapped in this situation, whatever it is. And now I get to be like, oh my God. Like, and I have these moments where I get to make these decisions for myself. And that's like every time I make one of those decisions, I feel free. And I feel like, whoa. Um, I don't know if you've seen the trend on TikTok or Instagram Reels with Lightning McQueen, where it's like, "Go, it's like it's cheering you on," and that's sort of how like I feel about myself every time I make a decision that leads me closer to freedom. I'm like, um, but yeah, freedom, play, a sense of pride, because I know, like, damn girl, you did this. Like, look what you did.
Yeah, you did. Yeah. And you know how far you came,
Hmm.
from from rock bottom to being back on top, and just playing and enjoying life. And I love that, um saying that you were so serious before, and now it's all about just play and enjoyment and loving life.
Yeah,
And so yeah, there is hope. And that's the point of this podcast. It gets better. And
yeah.
it takes work, those not today mantras, and
Hmm.
little changes day by day. But one day you look back and you're like, look how far I've come.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and it's not a steady uphill
Mm-mm.
or
No.
downhill, or whichever way we're going. It's
Yeah.
not it's not steady. We do have setbacks along the way, and you know
Yes.
but
And that
just keep
voice,
going.
that voice is there. That mean little voice, it's still there. Um, but now, you know, I was just talking about this the other day with somebody. Like there's two rabbit holes that I could choose to dive into, if you will. One is that ego mind that's telling me all the reasons I'm worthless, all the reasons I suck, all the reasons I'm trapped, all that stuff. And
Mhm.
once I go in that rabbit hole, the momentum can grow and grow and grow, and it could really get pretty rough out there.
Mhm.
There's also this other rabbit hole where I'm like, wow, like look at you go. Like there's this rabbit hole where I'm like, look at you go, look how free you are, look how much you are playing now, like look at all you've accomplished. And that momentum can grow too.
Yes.
And so, you know, for me, like part of the ups and the downs is being like, oh, I'm in the wrong rabbit hole right now. I see you. I got you. We're just gonna hop over to the neighbor's house. We're gonna go down that one for a while. And but like part of that too is I think I would notice that before, but I would be speaking of being serious, like I would then like slap myself in the wrist. I can't believe you're going down this negative rabbit hole. But now it's sort of like I'm sort of like flirting with it. And the ego mind I feel like hates that. They're like, "Oh, stop," right? And I'm like, "Look at you." Like for instance, let's say my ego mind's like, oh, don't wear that to this podcast interview. Like you're gonna look stupid, right? Like I might respond to that by being like, oh, so I hear you care about how this podcast interview goes, right? So like flirting with it.
I
And then
love
it's
it.
like, oh, what are you doing? Gets me right back on track at least.
Yes, I love that strategy. Love it. It's so true, because yeah, ego wants you to get all upset, and yeah, you're like,
Yeah.
mm-mm.
Mm. So you care about me? full disclosure, I did get that from a TikTok video, so I wish I could give the woman credit, but it was just when I saw that, I was like, yes, queen, I'm stealing that. That is such a helpful tool. But it just, yeah, it leads towards that play. And play, I feel like it's almost, I dare say, like my purpose, or I might dare even say our purpose in life, like play.
Mhm.
At least that's when I feel most alive.
Yes.
So,
Yes, definitely. Okay. Any last words of wisdom for our audience?
hmm, let's see. I would just say that the darkness, whatever it is, um, it's simply, I want to speak for myself from my own experience. So when I experienced the darkness, the it was simply contrast for me, contrast of what I could create. It showed me all of the things that I didn't want, and it made everything so much more, the momentum towards everything that I wanted to create so much more powerful. Showed me exactly what I wanted, and it helped me create that. So there, for me, there was deep purpose in all of this.
Beautiful. Yeah. I love that perspective. Hard to see at the time, but
Very hard,
but
very.
yes, it is true. Yeah, all of that darkness is exactly what you don't want. And so then, yeah,
Showed me exactly what it was
shows
that I wanted, and then I could
exactly.
move forward toward it.
Yeah. Yeah. One
So
day at a time. All
one
right.
second at a time.
1 second at a time. Yes, sometimes. All right. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your story with us.
Yeah.
Loads of gratitude and appreciation to you.
Thank you for having me.